Welcome to our presentation. Today we will be discussing the development of a digital dictionary for the language Ngu, and our collaborators are myself, Kerry Jones, Bonnie Sands, and Minnow van Zaanen. The overview of our presentation today is looking at our data set, the dictionaries that we hope to develop, and the challenges that we're facing so far. The digital dictionary resources are specifically for the language Ngu, and they're based on the data that's been collected from mother tongue speakers, approximately 25 of them, as well as the collaborating linguists from around the globe. To document and preserve the language and the culture of the Tsimane people is the primary focus of this project, and we'll be producing three outputs at the end of the project. So the first one being a digital preservation of linguistic material. So this will be housed with Sadila, and then we'll be developing further materials based on all these digital recordings that we have that have been created over the last 25 years. And we want to make this data accessible, and most especially to the South African public. To give you a bit of background of the Ngu language and where the data comes from, early fieldwork took place in the 1990s. And here you will see from left to right, David Kruiper, who's the previous traditional leader of the Tsimane, Andries Lane, who's a speaker of Ngu, and Nigel Crawhall, who is a linguist and a human rights activist. They continued with data collection semantically as well as specifically for that region. And here you see doing map work and collecting traditional place names throughout the region of the Northern Cape, where the remaining speakers are originally from. And here you see the picture of David Kruiper working with Professor Lefi Namaseb from University of Namibia on the traditional place names of the Kalahari region. Here we have Bonnie Sands, who is a linguist who's been working with Ngu probably for the longest now among the group of collaborators that we have, and she's based in the US. And here she's working with Simon Sauls in a makeshift office that she made in the Kalahari to collect audio recordings. And unfortunately, very recently, Opa Sauls has since passed away. This is our most recent field trip. There's myself sitting on the left-hand side next to Oma Katrina Esu, who's now the last remaining speaker of Ngu. Sissy Bok from the Kalahari, she's a descendant of Ngu speakers. David van Wyk, who is the secretary for the Ngu Language Authority in Uppington, and Claudia Sneeman, who is Oma Gilmait's or Oma Katrina's granddaughter, who also speaks Ngu as a second language. And this was from our fieldwork. We were verifying some of the data entries and getting any missing audio recordings for translations that we do have. That was in May 2021, and we'll be going up again late July, early August. So who are the Tsimane people? They are an indigenous community from the Southern Kalahari in South Africa, and they're a group of people who are descendants of several San groups. So from the Tsam people of the south of the Karib River, the Tauni people who are found near the Nosop River, the Tsamani from the Malopo River area, and then the Kung from Namibia. So that merged group are all potentially speakers of the Ngu language. And they're also found in Namibia and Botswana, but there are no longer any speakers of the language in those countries anymore. The last speakers of Ngwita language is Ngu in South Africa. And so this is our last Ngwita language. However, there are others still spoken in Botswana today. Another language that is closely related to Ngu, that is also a Ngwita language, is Tsam, which is the language on our coat of arms. So traditionally, the Tsimane people were hunter-gatherers, and today they lead a more sedentary life. And from a linguistic standpoint, we see that there was a shift to Afrikaans, and also where many speakers speak Kukugubap or Nama as a second language. Here we see a photograph from the Hugh Brody collection, which is housed at UCT, of some of the Tsumani elders outside the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park. And this was their traditional land where they were forcibly removed to create the park. And now today they have access to the park. Unfortunately, all these elders in the photograph have since passed away after reclaiming access for their descendants. But the descendants today live nearby and do have access to the park. Here we see the Swartkop sisters. Unfortunately, also all three sisters have now passed away. They were all fluent speakers of Mu and very strong advocates for their language, especially in their later years when they felt safe to disclose that they were speakers and that their language should be documented and preserved. So previously, you may have heard of the language grouping Khoisan or Khoisan languages, sometimes spelled with an E, other times with an I, depending on who the author was. But today, this is more accurately grouped into three separate language families instead of one. So Khoita being the smallest of the three in terms of the remaining living languages, where Ngu is one of those and is our last Khoita language in South Africa. Then the Kha, with languages such as Krum and Junqasi, and then Khoikwadi, which is including languages like Nama and Naro. So all three of these language groups are under threat of extinction, with Khoita being the most sensitive or most vulnerable of the three. Ngu was thought to have been extinct in the 1970s in South Africa. However, in the 1990s, through a cultural documentation program run through UNESCO, 26 speakers came forward and self-identified, and then later it was verified that they were in fact speaking Ngu. Many people in the area assumed that they were speaking Nama, but this was not the case. Today we only have one speaker that remains. So early documentation of the language is very scarce, and so today we are fervently trying to collect any data that has been created in the last 25 years, especially from those who have agreed to donate their data. So, for example, from authors such as Berkman, Collins, Exter, myself, Amanda Miller, Leafy Namaseb, Bonnie Sands, and Elena Witzlak. As well as collaboration from several of the families and speakers and descendants of the area over the last 25 years to create the outputs that we're now looking at.
So I'll take over from here, and I'll walk you through some of the technical or challenges, the technical aspect or challenges of the project. So the idea is that one of the things we want to do is develop a dictionary for the language and make this dictionary freely available in different modalities. So for this to work, we first need to clean up the existing data set. So the cleaning up means verifying these entries with the remaining speaker at the moment. But we also need to consolidate the orthography. So different linguists have used slightly different orthography, and we need to make sure that this is consistent throughout the entire data set. The data set, and I'll say a little bit more about the data set, already contains an extensive selection of audio recordings. We're trying to collect additional audio recordings where needed. And we need to add and check the metadata on this data set. So once this cleanup is done, we would like to make the data set available in a repository. And then we convert this clean data set into different formats that are needed to create the different modalities. Okay, so what is in this data set? The data in the data set comes from different projects, or you can see it essentially has one large project that started about 25 years ago. At the time, there were more speakers available, and what was already mentioned is currently there's only one speaker left. So this is this needs to happen urgently. In the dataset, we have around 1,560 lexical items, and we also have recordings, audio recordings for these, including translations into 3 other languages. Furthermore, we have IPA transcriptions of these entries, and these are based on recordings from different speakers. So that's the core of this data set, but additionally, there are also other recordings. So almost 5,000 recordings of lexical items just in a context. And then there are some 20,000 more recordings for specific tasks, so targeted lists, diphthongs, primers, etc. So it's a relatively large data set, even though there were only so few speakers. Okay, so once the data set is cleaned up, we would like to make the data set available in a repository, and we're going to use Sadilar's repository, so you can find the URL there. So the repository of Sadilar contains data sets as well as tools. So the data set will definitely be made available there, and we're also looking at making the tools that we're developing in this project available through the repository as well. So this repository adheres to the FAIR principles, making the dataset findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So it's essentially free to use. Okay, as the different modalities that I talked about, we're looking at 3 different types of dictionaries: a physical dictionary, a real book, a mobile dictionary that you can use on your phone, and a web-based dictionary that you can access through a web browser. All these dictionaries will be made available for free, but clearly the physical dictionary has limitations there. It has a limited edition. These dictionaries will include the lexical entries in these 4 different languages that were already collected. So you can actually search for one word in one language and get access to the words in the other languages. Okay, so quick look at the physical dictionary. We're aiming to create 5,000 hard copy versions of the dictionary, and these will be made available to a range of outlets, so the descendants, selected libraries, selected academics, and selected language activists. In addition to the lexical entries, the dictionary will also include the biographies of the different speakers that participated in the project, as well as the linguists who helped collect, annotate, etc., the data over the last 25 years, so in the larger project. The mobile dictionary, like I said, will be available on mobile phones for both Android and iOS, so it can be used on a whole range of mobile phones. The app itself is developed by CTEX, the Center for Text Technology at the NWU, and essentially the data collected and cleaned up in the project will be inserted in this app. So you can actually search the data using the mobile app, and this will be freely available, freely downloadable through the regular channels. Okay, we're currently looking at 2 different modes in the app. An offline mode where essentially you download the app once, and then you don't need internet access when you access the dictionary on the phone. So all the information is located on the mobile phone itself. The online version also allows you to search in the online kind of web-based data set. And that might be interesting if you want to make the audio recordings available, because the audio recordings take up quite a bit of space if you only download that on the mobile phone. So we're still seeing whether we can have the recordings on the mobile phone as well. So this is a trade-off between using space and using internet access. The web-based dictionary, like I said, can be accessed through a web browser, and this will be done as a dictionary portal also on the Sadilar website. So you can simply search for the words using a web browser. Essentially, it has the same functionality as the mobile dictionary, but it will be a bit easier to make the audio recordings available there, because you need to have internet access to search in this web dictionary. Okay, now there are a few challenges that we're still working on at the moment. So I'll walk you through these challenges and I'll quickly discuss the possible solutions that we're now working on. So one of the interesting challenges is that the languages have click symbols, and these click symbols need to be represented. You need to be able to input these to search for the particular words. However, most keyboards don't have keys for these click symbols. So there are different possibilities to try and get these click symbols in the search query field. What we're probably going to use, at least as a start, is to add essentially screen buttons that allow you to insert these click symbols. This can be done on a web browser and also on the mobile phone. So it's separate from your regular keyboard. You can click on places, say in a web browser, or places on the screen of your a mobile phone to specifically select the click symbols. An alternative solution that we're looking at is to develop a completely new dictionary, so that essentially replaces a new keyboard that replaces the keyboard on your mobile phone, that also includes the click symbols. But then again, this requires downloading a special keyboard for your mobile phone, whereas the screen buttons don't require that. Another challenge deals with the providing suggestions of entries. So the mobile phone app and also the web-based dictionary typically allow, so by default allow typing in a partial word, and then the online tool, the online dictionary, will provide suggestions on what you might of the entries that you might be looking for. However, here it's a little bit more complicated, especially if the click symbols are missing or if the click symbols are incorrect. So in a way, you need to incorporate spelling correction functionality as well to the suggestion functionality. And what's specifically interesting here or challenging here is that there are many words that have the click symbol right as the first character, and the typical suggestion modules assume that the beginning of the word is correct. So we're looking at implementing a kind of improved suggestion module. So like I said, the current module assumes that the beginning of the word is correct, so it needs to perform some sort of spelling correction or more expanded search in this module, and that's not available by default. Okay, the next challenge is different browsing options. So the default online dictionary, the app and the web based interface allow for typing in a word and then you get suggestions. But what we also like to add is alphabetical browsing, but also semantic browsing. Now, alphabetical ordering is in a way relatively easy. We know how that works. But if we also want to get some sort of semantic ordering where you can search for a particular word and then find other words that have a similar meaning, that requires semantic information. The current dataset has some information, some data on the semantic clustering, the semantic grouping. We still need to incorporate this in the app and see how we can actually get this to work practically. One thing that we have been working on or been thinking about is having a WordNet-like representation. So you can actually search through the different relationships in a way between words. But this does require a completely different interface and also more extensive semantic information. Then the next challenge, the making available of the audio recordings. In a way, this is easy. We can make the audio recordings available, but we want to minimize the mobile data use. So this is specifically for the mobile app. There are different solutions, and we need to play with what's the most practical solution, either adding all the audio recordings in the offline mobile app, and that means that you'll get a relatively big mobile app on your phone. We can also play around with lowering the audio quality, the quality of the recordings in the mobile app, so you get a lower quality recording, but you're using less data. Or perhaps have no audio recordings in the mobile app, but only in the web-based dictionary. So these are different trade-offs that we need to play with. Okay, to quickly summarize, we talked about the development of a digital dictionary for the new language. We need to do different things. We need to clean up the existing data set that contains lexical items, also recordings. And this data set was collected over in a larger project over around 25 years. Currently, this language only has one remaining speaker in South Africa. And what we're trying to do with this data set, we're making that available in different modalities. So physical dictionary, a mobile dictionary, and the web-based dictionary, which are all going to be, well, I mean, the mobile app and the web-based dictionary will be made available for free for the general public. And we're aiming to deliver these final products in early 2023. Thank you very much for listening.